everyone. Welcome back to Season 4 of the Reddit League. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined in this reveal show by my co-caster Calamity. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And our special guest, as always, for these things is Rado. How are you doing?
Hey guys, I'm doing fine. How are you?
We're doing great. Glad to have you back again and to show off another season of the Reddit League. I'm excited. I can't imagine how you guys feel about this. I'm sure you're both excited as well. So let's just jump right into this. We've got a lot to cover in this. We're going to start off with just a little bit of a basic. What is Reddit League and what not? Yeah, Redox, do you want to just tell us a little bit about Reddit League?
Yeah, Reddit League is a league organized by the subreddit, and the main organizer is Schmingo. So basically, everyone can participate in it, or at least that's how it used to be. The league is spread into different divisions of different skill, more or less, and the competition itself is spread more or less evenly among world maps and country maps, so that players have to show a very different kind of skill set. And yeah, that's the basics, I think.
Yeah, we've got 5 divisions with 74 total players. Each division has a different time limit as well. So Division 1 has only 3 minutes per round, while Division 5 has 5 minutes per round. So quite a bit of a difference there as well. There are a few rule changes from last season to cover. Calamity.
Yeah, there's nothing too major, but just a few small things. First off, because there was some complaints at the end of last season that the playoffs in Division 4 and 5 kind of went to some country maps, which I don't think was too bad in this specific case, but could be bad in the future if, you get home advantage for some reason in a playoff final. So we changed it for this season so that the final of the playoffs will always be on a world map. Then another change, as it was in previous seasons, if you had your bye week, you didn't really have to do anything. You could have just not played. That is not the case anymore. You still need to play your game if you want to receive those free bonus points pretty much for you. Otherwise, your score, you basically will be counted as a -1 score, so that you're theoretically lost against the opponent who got a 0 because, he was red carded and couldn't play or something like that. Also, if you got red carded, in the second half of the season, but you have a very good explanation for it, such as, I don't know, had an accident and was in the hospital and it couldn't contact anyone or stuff like that, then you still get disqualified for this season, of course, because, retroactively changing stuff like that is not easy. But you can skip the ban that you would normally receive for the next season and join the league as normal then. Probably getting relegated regardless, but at least you can join back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, welcome. If you'd like to know more about the league and all the details and all the rule changes, you can head over to the Season 4 Reddit Google Sheet that is on a Reddit, or also in the little description below this video, and you can read all of that information for yourself there.
And just one more thing that I forgot earlier as well, because it's like written in small print there, but also the winner of a promotion and relegation decider, if they drop out of the league in the next season, then the other person, basically the second place of the promotion decider, gets promoted instead, rather than as it was until now, that they still stayed in their division and the newcomer would take the other person's place in the division above.
I think that's a fair change. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's just jump right into all the divisions and the players. We'll start off here with Division 1, which by far has the biggest shuffling since last season. We had a total of 6 players drop out of the 12, including a few who were scheduled for relegation anyway, but that means we lost over half the players, and Division 1 shrinks back down into 10 players as opposed to 12 last season, Calamity.
Yeah, Division 1 sort of had a mass exodus. only 12 players in total left the league between season 3 and season 4, and half of those were Division 1 players. No one actually, I think, no one who made it to the playoffs. Those remained here, but you've got Giovanni Ainaglu. Actually, Giovanni did make it to the semifinals, I think. Yeah, Giovanni Ainaglu, Magyaron, RC, Kevin Kroner, and Equinox all left. A lot of them I know for time reasons, because, for example, Radu just started college, I think. Ainaglu had got another offer that meant he doesn't really have the time anymore. For some, I just don't know. I haven't really heard anything from the others.
Yeah, it's worth noting that Division 1 is by far the most demanding. It's very competitive and requires a lot of work if you want to stay even remotely kind of not make a fool of yourself, let's put it that way, in front of everybody in that. And so it's definitely understandable when real life kind of comes calling that you can step down and do take care of those things instead for that. But in their place, we've got a couple promoted players as well as a couple new players, Radok.
Yeah, there's a few new players. That is Blinky, Bulgur, and then the promoted ones, which are Chicago Geographer, who's back here, Aistaru, who made it here, which is quite, I think it started in Division 3, right?
Yep.
In the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So he's now in Division 1 with a lot of improvements in his skill. And Wardok is also back to help with the French division, which Division 1 is almost becoming now.
Very nice. Yeah, Chicago and Verdok were in Division 1 in the past, relegated to Division 2 and back up. Yeah, two new players. Last season, the new players did quite well. People like Boxa, Einar Glue, and Einar Glue. They did pretty well. Unfortunately, Einar Glue not rejoining us this season, but yeah. So they gave the old guys a run for their money. You expecting the same thing again, Calamity, given how hard it is to qualify at the top of preseason?
Yeah, 100%. This Division 1 is basically insane. I feel for the guys like Ice, who just made it there promoted, Simi as well, who's lost a bit of motivation, in Geoguessr in general. They're gonna have a tough time, I think, trying to keep up, because you've not only got the monsters that we've already seen in Raidman, Boxer, Mr. Blue, you've also got Blinky, who's incredible. And I've not actually had much to do with Bulgur so far, but just by the fact that he was only 1,500 points behind Blinky in preseason, pretty much guarantees me that he's also going to be up there. And I'm expecting, personally, a lot of 25Ks over the course of the season. It obviously depends a bit on the maps as well, as always, and the seeds they get. But we've got so many strong players here that I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of perfect scores and a lot of draws with very few points lost over the course of the season.
Yeah. Rado, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've actually seen a few plays of Blinky, and it feels like he's one of those pinpointing monsters that can so quickly identify which exact point it is on the map by just zooming in. Basically, it goes so fast. So I definitely expect that he will be one of the favorites if he can adjust with practicing 2 countries. I assume he will do fine. And Bulgur, yeah, if he's only so little behind Blinky, he might also play at least for a medium to top place, possibly. I do think Aistaru and Verdok might be in for some trouble, and as well Simi, if he cannot play more Geoguessr again, it might be really difficult for those 3. But yeah, it's very hard to have a favorite here. It could be Boxa, it could be Raidman again, it could be Mr. Blue finding his form again, it could be Blinky that wins it all. Yeah, there's quite some stuff that could go down. Yeah,
I know that Chicago Geographer has been at least streaming and playing a lot more GeoGuessr. I mean, he was pretty active to begin with, but he's even up that level in the last few months over the off season. So I definitely think he has a good chance of staying up in Division 1. I don't know if I would say he's a contender for the title, but I definitely think he doesn't have to worry about a relegation fight, at least this season, is my opinion.
Yeah, I think with Chicago and some of the others here, I think it'll depend a lot on how much they're able to practice. Especially with Ice as well. I know he likes to practice a lot. So if he's got the time or not will decide his fate, I think, a bit. Whereas for people like Verdok, for example, I think Verdok doesn't actually practice that much. And I think for him, it'll depend more on what kind of maps we have. And there's some maps where he'll always do great, and there's some maps where he might struggle a bit. So I think I think for him, it'll depend a lot more on just maybe what matchups he's got, who he's paired up against, and where they take place.
Well, let's take a little bit of a closer look at these matchups for week 1. The Reddit League has already started as of yesterday,
I think, at the time of recording.
Yeah, problem with time zones. So, so let's take a look at the week 1 matchups. We are in Japan. What a great start for the season. Couldn't have picked a better map. Let's just quickly run through this. We've got Orpheus versus Ice Tauru, Blinky versus Boxa, Chicago versus Verdok, Simi, Mr. Blue, Raidman, and Bulgur. Any early predictions about how these matchups are going to go, Calamity?
Yeah, as you already said, we're going to be in Japan. We're going to talk about the other maps later on, but just a few words on Japan first. It's a very fun country to play, I think, for all of us here, at least in the call. It has some very unique features, road numbers that are sort of well ordered. You can use area codes as well to help yourself. And you hope to God that you don't land on a random island somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Such, I think Japan is definitely one of the more diverse maps, I think, where if you're good at the map, you can definitely beat someone who's maybe not that good at it, even if the normal skill level would be higher than yours. And we've got some very exciting matchups already in week 1 with Blinky against Boxer. That might very well be a matchup that we could see in the final. Of course, as well as Chicago against Verdok, 2 players who got promoted last season. That could be fun as well to see. Raidman against Bulgur is another very strong matchup. Simi against Mr. Blue is going to be interesting. Simi, last season, he had a very bad start and then found his form towards the end of the season. And Mr. Blue kind of was the exact inverse of that. He started off very well and then dropped off a bit towards the end. And we'll see how their form changed over the off season and how they'll be able to compete. And then last one is Orpheus against Ice. That's going to be, I think that could be a very important match for both of them as well, as I don't want to say they're good candidates for a relegation fight, but they're probably 2 of the players where I would say if they pick up points against people who are of a similar standing, I would say, they definitely benefit from that.
Yeah, Rado, definitely the new boys trial by fire here. Last season's finalists in their first week.
Yeah, definitely agree that Ice, Orpheus, Chicago Geographer, and Verdok, they're already on a lot of pressure, because if they lose their game this week, they know that the season will most likely be very, very tough. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And then, of course, Boxa Blinky, a top matchup most likely. And Bulgur against Redman Mucha could also be extremely interesting to see if Bulgur can keep up. That's more or less. I know Simi hates Japan, so
yeah.
I don't think he's probably already frustrated before he starts the game.
Yeah, but I think Mr. Blue doesn't like Japan that much either.
Yeah, Mr. Blue has never really done that well in Japan. So
I don't think that they're generally candidates for relegation. I think I wouldn't be surprised if those two have the lowest scores around here in Japan.
Interesting indeed. Well, look forward to those casts. Hopefully we'll get a couple of these videos for you in the coming weeks for Division 1. Well, moving on to Division 2 and the standings for them. We've got 3 promoted players as well as 2 new players here and 1 relegated player. And Calamity just missing out on promotion last season. You're in this division as well.
Yeah, I've already called in the Reddit post for the first week. I've already called it Operation No Choke, because I was pretty much already like more than 1 foot in Division 1 and managed to completely mess up the last 3 weeks of the season. So I'll hope to not do that this time. But I do think I was already kind of lucky in a way with my matchups at the start of last season to even end up there in the first place. So I definitely wouldn't call myself a favorite for promotion. I think there's some other guys here who would be favorites above me, such as, depending on how much practice he can get in, Tall, definitely the newcomers Pluki and Pastek Hashi are also players that I can definitely see fighting for promotion. And some of the newcomers as well, Shumi, Patriots, and Max, they've basically, I think they've all 4 just made it from Division 4 to Division 2, basically, with 2 back-to-back promotions.
Shumi started in Division 3.
Oh, okay.
But he did get, that was his first season, and straight away promoted to Division 2. So yeah, they've all been promoting ever since they started. So
yeah, so they can definitely fight there at the top as well. Although I think it might probably be their last, like last season might have been their last back-to-back promotion, so to speak. And I think they're gonna do good. They're gonna do fine, but maybe not who I put down as favorites for promotion. Baseman as well, he's had some very, very good showings in some of the French competitions. And yeah, Schludi, of course, we've not really seen much of what he could potentially do in Division 2. Since he came into Division 1, he's always kind of been fighting against relegation there. So I'm excited to see what he can offer in Division 2 as well.
Indeed, yeah. Redo.
Yeah, I think this Division 2 is extremely interesting this year. Probably hasn't been that exciting ever, because I feel like it's really tough to imagine who gets promoted and who gets relegated, because it feels like everyone is kind of in the middle to me, more or less. Maybe I think Schludi could get promoted. Maybe Max could get relegated, but everything in between is like so hard to say, to make a prediction here. Maybe Calamity could make it, maybe not. Maybe Tall has a lot of time to practice. Maybe he could make it. The newcomers, Pluki, also dangerous. Yeah, it's really tough. I also think that Shumi and Patriots are not gonna get promoted, but I definitely could see them make it into the middle of the table, or maybe even a little bit above if things go really well.
Yeah, and talking about relegation, I think my favorites in quotation marks for relegation might be Teskotak and Guelo. Teskotak has been in Division 1 since the start of Reddit League, and he's always kind of just been in the middle there, but kind of just always dropped down like 1 or 2 places every season. And he's slowly getting to the point where it might get very, very close with relegation here. And Guelo struggled last season a lot. He's a good player, but he was already kind of pretty much just benefited off the fact that Blockchain got disqualified, and then he managed to win the relegation playoff match against you. So he might be in for a very tough season himself. And I'm not sure about Max specifically. For me, I've always kind of seen Max as someone who either gets like a really good score or like a really bad score, depending on what map we're playing. So I think that's what it'll come down to for him as well. Mostly just what maps he's good at and which he's not good at.
Yeah, I definitely think that Division 2, just like last season, is definitely the sweaty division. It's a division where if those players practice, they can do really, really well with the time limit given to them. But if they don't, it really could be anybody's game, right? Anybody could beat anybody on any day without practice. And then when if you throw in practice, some of them do kind of boost their chances over their opponent a little bit more than others. Tall, M the Baseman, Max, and Shumi, those kind of things. But really, yeah, kind of just echoing Rado here, it's literally everybody's middle of the table, and it's just going to be who is good on the day will decide promotion all the way down to relegation for me here in Division 2. Well, let's look at the matchups in Week 1 for them. We've got our couple of promoted players facing off against each other, Patriots and Max FI. Calamity, you face Tescotac in your first matchup in Japan. M the Baseman against a new boy there, as well as Tall facing off against one of those new players.
Yeah, some very interesting matchups here too. I think Patriots Max as well as Shumi Guelo will already be some matches that sort of show where the season is headed for some of these players. I think those are relatively even, and again, similarly to how I mentioned with Orpheus and Ice, for example, in Division 1, where those are some players that might need every point they can get, especially against players of a similar skill level. So that would be definitely some important wins for them if they can pull it off. I think my game against Tescotac is a must win for me, not because Tescotac is any bad or anything, but because Japan is probably one of my best maps in the pool. And well, as I said, I don't think Tescotac is bad. I think he's probably one of the easier opponents. I played him last season. I think it was on Asia, and I won that game too. So I hope I can start with a win there because, yeah, there's some tough players here, especially if we look at, for example, the last match there on our list, Tall Impala against Paste Caché. Those two, as we've said before, could very well fight for promotion. And again, first game of the season might already point them in a specific direction. Ploki and M the Baseman also very strong duel there. And Schludi Clyde could be very interesting. And I have no idea how that one's going to go. I played against Clyde I played against him in Italy. That's not very relevant to Asia. But yeah, as I said before, I'm really looking forward to see what Schludi does in Division 2 because I've got like no idea where to place him really in terms of skill level in comparison to all these other players. Because as we've seen earlier, like most of the players who would have gotten relegated from Division 1 are gone. So he's pretty much playing against all new players for him. We've got no comparison of him against any of these players whatsoever.
Proved to be quite interesting indeed. Yeah, anything stand out for you, Rado?
Yeah, I think Schludi survived a season in Division 1, right?
Yeah, two seasons in Division 1.
Well, he survived Season 2. He didn't survive Season 3.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that should be enough for him to be the favorite here. But yeah, who knows? There's no bad opponent, so he could fail a few times or not have time. You just never know who practices how much. Yeah, generally, yeah, a lot of balanced matchups, it seems. So anything could happen here. Pluki against M the Baseman could be the winner, might be long term going for a at least the top 4 spot maybe. And yeah, for Calamity, yeah, he should win against Tescotag if he wants to get promoted without a game in the end. So direct promotion. So yeah, that's kind of, in that sense, it would be a must win. And yeah, but overall, yeah, Calamity has said it all. I think there's not much to add.
Great. Well, let's then shift into Division 3 and those players for this one. We have got Division 3 promoted players, 2 relegated players, and 2 newcomers. Rado, you have finally been demoted out of Division 2. You survived. You survived 2 relegation fights, but third time was not the charm for you, moving down with Seppo as well. Barry Fishy Bear, Polybus, or Ordbaka, and LCN, all
LCN, yeah.
jumping up. Yeah, LCN all jumping up from Division 4 last season. Our two new boys, WTF and Paul Football, for this one. So yeah, Rado, I'll give you first shot at Division 3, your new division.
Yeah, it looks like also Division 3 is getting more competitive every season. It was extremely competitive last season already, but now it feels like, yeah, also it's extremely tough. Everyone is good. Yeah, so what do I think? It's actually maybe, yeah, Barry Fishy Bear. I think he's a very good player. So was surprised he started so in one of the lower leagues in 4. So I think he could be one of the favorites, even though he just got promoted. And then last season, one of my failed prediction was that Hugo Alvara is going to promote, but it was a very rough season for him last season. So I'm not gonna say that again.
Mhm.
So yeah, he might maybe stabilize around the middle of the table. Closed did finish 3rd last season, so yeah, he could also be one that gets promoted. Yeah, the new players, I've seen Paul Football around for a while, I think, so I definitely have some respect there. WTF, yeah, I'm hard to say. Yeah, but generally the new players are always strong, so I give him that benefit. Who could get relegated here? That's a big question.
Yeah.
That's actually a very, very difficult question.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like people like LCN and Orbaka and Bear Fishy Bear, they're kind of when they're hot, but when they're cold kind of thing. Like when they're doing well, when they're putting in the practice, uh, yes, they could easily stay in Division 3. I think all of them could. But in this season, are they going to do that in enough weeks? I don't know. That's really good, what's going to come down to. And it's not going to make it easy for people who have been towards the bottom of Division 3 constantly. People like Benica and Dem Freckles, who are kind of always in the middle towards the bottom. Yeah, Hugo, generally a great player, but a really rough season last season, just surviving at the end there. Yeah, your thoughts, Calamity, on this Division 3?
Yeah, I think this one has leveled out a lot in terms of skill. I think we've lost some very good players to Division 2. And the new players that came after them with Barry, Polyboss, and LCN, I think are good players. But I think more so on the level of most other people in this division. And I think this one could be very, very close. And it's pretty unpredictable. I think, yeah, in terms of towards the relegation, LCN was just, he kind of flew under the radar last season in Division 4. There was nothing really that stood out to me from him. And he did win the playoff, but we'll see if he can keep that going and maybe secure himself sort of a mid-table position at least. This definitely, it's hard to say as well who's going to go for the promotion race. As Radok said, whose name Zotomo still can't really pronounce. Barry Fishy Bear is definitely a good candidate for a fight for promotion. I agree on that. Closed will depend a bit on how much he can practice. I know towards like the end of last season, he said he couldn't practice as much anymore, and he then lost those matches. So that to me indicates that he's someone who has to practice a bit, and if he doesn't have the time, he might not be fighting for promotion. Seppo is going to be interesting. He got promoted out of Division 3 in Season 1, and since then he was in Season 2, in Division 2. And it'll be interesting for me to see how he does now back again in Division 3. Because I think ever since Season 1, like, I think the skill level has only gone up in all of the divisions pretty much. So just because he won Division 3 in Season 1 doesn't mean he's going to win it again this time. Radox, maybe, if he's got some time to practice and does well on the maps that he can actually play, like Japan, might be a candidate fighting at least for like the upper mid-table. Freckles is always an interesting case as well. Usually, I think, again, one of those players that doesn't really practice that much, but very, very tough to beat on a map that he's comfortable on. I think he's very similar to Verdok in that way. Yeah, some other wild cards as well there. Hugo, Benica maybe even, who had a pretty strong, I think, end to the season last season. Who knows what they can show? And I have to be honest, I've not really heard of either of the two newcomers. So I'll just let myself be surprised by how good they will be.
Oh. Let's take a look at their matchups for week 1 in Japan. Freckles facing off against Skydiving Ferret might be interesting. Two newcomers from different directions, LCN and Seppo, facing off against each other. Rado, you're up against one of the new boys in Paul football. The other one, WTF, taking on Ordbaka. So Radu, any interesting matchups here that stand out?
Good question. Benica against Hugo could be an interesting tell game to see who is going in what direction. Maybe Hugo can get a good start this season. That would be good for him. Closed against Barry Fishy Bear, what I said could be a top matchup. So this is probably the most interesting game. And for myself, it feels like a little bit, when I saw Japan, I was like, hell yeah, that's my map. I can do it. But then I was like, my second thought was, oh, maybe if I lose week 1 after getting relegated in Japan, it's gonna be a really, really, really terrible feeling to start the season, which might have other negative stuff happening after. Who knows? So it also feels like there's a lot of pressure for me because I cannot lose technically. I mean, I shouldn't.
Calamity.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking towards Barry against Closed as well as the top matchup in regards to promotion. I also think LCN against Seppo could be a very interesting matchup. I think for both of them, that will be very indicative of where their season is headed. I think Freckles is the favorite against Ferret. I think Polyboss against WTF could be interesting as well. I think Polyboss shouldn't be underestimated. He's had some good performances throughout the last season and won his division as well. Benica Hugo, of course, interesting as well. And Radox against Paul Football. I have never heard of him, so I don't know how strong he is. But as Radox said, it's kind of a must-win game for him.
Very nice. A lot of interesting matchups to check out in week 1 for Division 3. Well, from here on out, Division 4 and 5 have 2 groups each. They have an A group and a B group, each with 10 players. So total, Division 4 and 5 have 20 apiece. So we'll split them up a bit. Our Division 4A, plenty of French players. Actually, there's only 3 different countries represented in this one, right? Which is kind of the interesting that stood out to me. Everybody's either American, French, or Swiss. So quite a not very diverse group there. A couple of very strong players who didn't get promoted last season in Division 4, but also a couple new boys to keep an eye out for as well. In this one, Calamity.
Yeah, and this is an interesting division in the way that I think almost no matter who gets promoted out of this division, I think they'll have a good shot at being very competitive next season in Division 3 as well, because I think this division's level is very high. Players like Farban, Hexalt, Nakiro, all very, very good players. The newcomers as well, I've not seen Lunacy Echo around, but I've seen Solar Sensei on some tournaments putting in pretty good scores and maps too. I think this will be an interesting season as well in regards to who will get relegated, because you've got kind of, if you look at where they finished last season, you've got a think probably favorites for relegation are Pöstetli, Neusel, maybe even H-Town. But H-Town had some very good results last season as well. Kind of exceeded my expectations for him. And Neusel as well is a player that can always kind of show up. So it might be a very tough season for Pöstetli, to be honest. He's gonna give it his best, but he was already kind of lucky in a way last season that like 3 players in Division 4A got red carded, which meant that only 1 player in Division 4B, which he was in, got relegated. So his 8th place with 10 points was enough to keep him in the division. But I doubt that he'll be as lucky in terms of that. I doubt that there will be as many red cards this season as there were last season, because I think it was partially based on the deadline change and partially, I don't know. But yeah, I think most of those players, they're very little newcomers as well. So I think, I don't know, if we don't see any of the newcomers get red carded, I don't see anyone in this division get disqualified.
Yeah, very nice for them. Plenty of good French players in this one. Firebond had a really rough start to last season in Division 5. He just, like, something happened with his computer, right? In round 1, game 1 was just pretty much just thrown in the garbage.
Yeah.
But after that, he won everything, cleaned up Division 5B last season. So definitely really looking forward to see what he can do in Division 4. Well, Division 4B, we finally see my name on here somewhere. This is where I am. Also with Theos relegated down. Other than that, Noob moves over from 4A. Steal this Nick in the same place. Wakelock stays in the division as well. 2 new players promoted up, Diesel and J Lions, and our new players, Soviet and Tychonicus, move in from the preseason. So, Rado, your thoughts on Division 4B?
Yeah, definitely the 2 promoted guys are definitely to be taken serious, I think. And yeah, it feels like in every division it shows that this season every division feels much more balanced. So it feels extremely tough to do any prediction. Yeah, I could see Soviet Spy. I think he's pretty good at the top. I could see Jake Lyons, Diesel at the top. It's pretty tough. Steely Snake is good. Theos came down, so I think he got promoted before from Division 4. Maybe he can repeat that. Yeah, maybe a little bit tougher season for Wakelock, I could see. And yeah, Tychonicus, I have no idea. But in general, I give the benefit of the doubt to the new players, or not. Yes, they usually perform very good. Yeah, and Punt Noob, I don't. Yeah, he also finished well last season. It's tough.
Yeah. Steal this Nick, I think, is definitely if it's his map, he's got you. But if it's not his map, you can probably pick the win off of him out of that. I know Pon Noob is definitely taking this season more seriously than he did last season. He's been chatting in the Discord about how he's going to put into practice and actually trying to form study groups for all the maps. So we'll definitely see what he can do with all that extra practice. And yeah, those new boys, both the promoted and the coming in for preseason, definitely not to be taken lightly. They can definitely do a lot of damage to some of these returning players in 4B. Let's take a look at these matchups in Japan then for Division 4. In 4A, some interesting matchups. Neusel and Hidegmi definitely stand out, and Hexal and Farbond also pretty interesting matchups for their Calamity.
Yeah, I think Hexal against Farbond is definitely the matchup of Division 4. I could see both of those be very strong challenges towards promotion, and I think the one who's going to win this match is going into the season with a very strong perspective, and the loser will have to try to make those points up some other way. Interesting matches as well all around here. I think Nakura against Pork Steaks could be kind of interesting as well. Pork Steaks was in Division 3, I think, 2 seasons ago and then got relegated. So he at least has some experience with the higher divisions. And Nakiro, also a very strong player too. H-Town against Solar Sensei, as well as Lunacy against Pashtetli, could both be matchups where we're looking towards kind of the relegation zone for the loser of those. Similarly to how we've had in some of the upper divisions where, nothing's ever decided after week 1, but those kind of games are indicative, especially if you've got an opponent that is similar to you in the level. And as you said, Neusler against Hedigme could also be a very even matchup and could be fun to see who can come out on top of that one.
Right. Yeah, over in Division 4B, Ponum facing off against Theos ZA. I'm up against one of the newcomers in Diesel. Wakelock also taking on Soviet Spy. Jake Lyons and Tonicus, 2 new players off against each other in this one. So, Rado, anything stand out to you here?
I think your game against Diesel seems extremely interesting. I know you also play the Japan League. So you definitely have the language favor, but I think Diesel overall might be a little bit better and more consistent. So it's going to be really interesting to see who wins this one. Jake Lyons has to prove himself against a newcomer, Tychonicus. So could show in what direction he's going to trend. Steal the Snake, probably favorite in this game. Soviet Spy probably as well the favorite, and Theos against Noob, that could be really interesting. I think pretty much balanced maybe.
Great. Yeah, I definitely think that if I want to even have a look in at promotion, I need to win a map like Japan. That's the thing that goes without saying. We'll see if I can do that against Diesel, a promoted newcomer. Okay, well then let's check out our final division, Division 5A. This probably has the most newcomers. Last season, if you were towards the bottom in Division 5, both 5A and 5B, you had to re-qualify. So this has the biggest shakeup in terms of new players entering from the preseason. Returning players in Division 5A, we have Geoguessr, GRH77, Jaguar, and Marcus Fenn. It's only 3 French names. I'll never get these right at all. I should just let you guys say them all the time.
Yeah.
Basically we've got 7 new players coming in from this one, Calamity.
Yeah, we did have, as you mentioned before, Division 5 was 10 players as well last season, and the bottom 3 got automatically sort of relegated out of the league and had to re-qualify, and I think there was 2 more, like a playoff game between 6th and 7th as well. And unfortunately, no one actually managed to re-qualify. 2 players tried, Steven and I think, who is the other one? Let me just quickly check. I think it was Soundbite who tried as well.
Yes, yeah.
Both of them unfortunately falling just short of getting back in. But yeah, this could be an interesting one. I think Geoguessr is going to go in as a heavy favorite out of the ones at least that were already here last season. I don't know a lot of the newcomers. I've seen some of them around, but I've not really seen anything like amazing out of any of them. So I'm interested to see what they can show. I don't really. Yeah, I think looking through the newcomers as well, Geoguessr has to be my clear favorite for promotion. After that, maybe Marcus. Marcus was a bit hit or miss last season. He had some very good maps, some very bad maps. So if he can sort of get rid of the bad maps, he's going to be a good candidate as well. And out of the newcomers, I honestly couldn't tell you who I'd think. Probably if we're just going based off of who finished well in the preseason, you'd have Mr. Fish and Ancient Recoverer here as the favorites in quotation marks, but we'll have to see. It's kind of always the case like this in Division 5 or in like the lowest division. That's always where the most newcomers come in, and the most players will just get to know over the course of the season.
Yeah. Oh, so the best part of it, we get to really get to know some new players who are up and coming in the game. In Division 5B, we've got 4 players returning, including One Word Girl, Danny Blondes, and Levon Greb, and Vincenzo. And that means there are 6 new players coming in from preseason. Xander, probably the biggest name of them all in this level.
Yeah, definitely. Sander, he could be one of the favorites here. He's been playing for a while. We see him in standings every now and then. And so, yeah, I'm always a little bit surprised that he ended up in Division 5. But then again, it's getting more competitive every season. So now we even have very good players in Division 5 in Reddit League. So, yeah, but he could be one of the favorites. Overall, it seems to be Division 5B to be more names that we know than 5A. Because some of the qualified names like Sander, Vitanova, Nabend, I think also Clemens, Kerchik, I've seen before. Yeah, so feels like there's more known names, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're better than Division 5A. So here it's probably a little bit tougher to get a favorite. I could see Danny Blondes, Laban Greb, and of course Sander. Yeah, maybe if things go well for Caroline and Vincenzo Avantaggiato, they could end up at a good spot as well. And yeah, the newcomers, except Sander, I think hard to predict. Yeah, we have another Japanese player, which I'm really liking. So gonna be really interesting to see him perform in week 1, especially.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I love seeing another player carrying that Japanese flag in Reddit League. Yeah, so let's take a look at these matchups for Division 5A and B. Yeah, pretty much all of our returning players in Division 5A are facing off against newcomers in this one, so no rematches, at least in week 1, Calamity.
I think the 2 matchups I would say that you should look for here in terms of players that could potentially fight for the top is Geoguessr against Ancient Recover and Teyemine against Marcus Fenn. I think those 4 players are going to be the ones that will fight for promotion. There might be some other newcomer who's going to be in that battle as well, but as we mentioned before, we'll see that over the course of the season. I think in regards to relegation, GRH77 against Kiribati for Life is going to be an interesting matchup in that sense as well, because GRH has kind of also been pretty hit or miss in the previous seasons. He's had some good performances occasionally, but also mostly in countries where you'd normally have to practice to get good scores. He has shown that he struggled with those. And Kiribati, I've seen him around for a long time, but I don't think he's one of the stronger players around here. I think if there is a map that he's really good at, then he might have a shot at taking some points off of some of the more favorites. But I don't think Japan is one of those maps.
Okay. Yeah, Division 5B also got a lot of our players are facing off against new people, but we do have one rematch, Vincenzo and Laban Greb, 2 returning players up against each other in that one. Vitanova, one of the player from Japan, up against Weg. Interesting name, Rado.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see the European matchup here. Playing in Japan, Vincenzo against Laban Greb. Yeah, then we will have to see if Sander can actually confirm what we've said in the prediction. Is he really going to be a top player? Maybe not if he loses against Clemens. Nabend against Danny Blonde, also potential for maybe to have Danny Blonde give him a bad start if things go poorly. And yeah, of course, very interesting to see Obra's Tokyo, or is that his playing name, right?
His Geoguessr name is Vita Nova. Oberst Tokyo
No,
is
the
the Reddit
Geoguessr
name.
name was Vita Nova. So yeah, definitely interesting to see if he can get a convincing win or not. I mean, yeah. And Caroline against Bombadil. I've never seen Bombadil before, so pretty rough to predict. Caroline has improved last season massively, so maybe if she can continue this trend, it should be a win. Hard to say, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll see indeed. Very exciting Reddit League season ahead of us. Let's finish up here with our maps. We've got we got 12 of them decided right now. There are 13 weeks. The final is obviously picked by the finalists, so we don't know those maps yet. We've talked about it a bit. Japan week 1, Guatemala, Lakes of the World, Iceland, Botswana, an improved world, Saskatchewan, Africa, Romania, Singapore, and Coastal World is our kind of schedule for the coming season. Any maps in particular stand out and worthy of mention at the beginning of the season, Calamity?
I mean, I think I'll just go through all of them individually anyway, but just as a sort of overview, it's a very interesting draw of countries and maps, some oddballs in there. Let's just start off with Japan. I think we said a couple of things already. Probably one of the I don't want to say easier maps, but maybe one of the more practicable maps where like, okay, I know what I have to do to get a good score here. Before we then immediately go to Guatemala, which will be fun, not. I don't think I've ever played, maybe I have once or so, but I don't think I've really got any memory of it. Just a country map of Guatemala, and I don't want to, but I don't think I've got any other choice. Things I know, like road numbers often just don't match up between what you see in Street View and what you see on the map. There's not a lot of signs anywhere. It's just a lot of it is in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So I'll have a better opinion when we get to the week 1 show and when I've practiced it a little bit, but that is going to be a map that will depend a lot on how you practice, how much you practice, how well you practice too. And I can definitely see some very, very low scores on that map if we go down to some of the lower divisions or some of the players who maybe are in a bit of a higher division than their skill would suggest otherwise. Then we go to Lakes of the World, and I have a hatred for all maps with an aquatic theme in the first place, and we've got 2 of them this season, which is just great. Although Lakes of the World is not that bad to me because you've got lakes everywhere pretty much. It is just kind of a little bit of a feature at your starting point. Maybe something that will kind of change the way you search for things, because kind of similar to Dams of the World that we had last season, where you kind of know you've got a feature on the map that you can look out for near your starting points. Then we've got Iceland, which is going to be pretty fun as well. Pretty much just an island with a road around it, and in 99% of the cases, you're going to be on that road. And then it's just a matter of, are you in a stretch of the road that has a dead end in both sides and coverage, or are you not? And if you are not, then just go until you find a road number or any sort of turn off from the major highway if you're on that. Then we go to Botswana, which is also not going to be a lot of fun, I think. Kind of similar, maybe not that much actually, but it always just kind of reminded me of Kenya in the sense that maybe even Uganda, where you don't have a lot of coverage, but you've got a lot of, like, the country itself is very big. So you've got a lot of roads leading through the middle of nowhere. And maybe that's stuff where you can learn, like, the color of the soil on this specific road, or maybe the direction the car's traveling in. I'm going to have to play this map against Tall, so I'm already not looking forward to that.
Oh boy, yeah.
then but at least like it's kind of like South Africa, where if you get to any major intersection, you usually find some signs, but just there's a lot less major intersections than in South Africa. Then we move on to just the bog standard world map with an improved world. I could have sworn when I looked through the schedule, I could have sworn we've already played that at some point, but apparently not if it's in the pool still. It just kind of sounds familiar, and it is kind of like any other world map that's out there. Then we go to Saskatchewan, which is an interesting province as well. I think it's our first Canadian state. Previously, we just had US states in this specific map pool. And I think it'll just play kind of like similar to maybe Japan a bit, in the sense that you're just looking for road numbers, pretty much. You're just looking for the next major intersection. Because Saskatchewan kind of reminds me like to the American grid system in cities. And just for Saskatchewan is the whole state, or at least the southern half, the one that has Street View, where you pretty much got a grid system of roads and you look for the next intersection. Then we go to Africa, which could be very interesting as well for a couple reasons. First off, it's a very large map, or sort of a large continent, but with very few countries that have Street View. And it's very easy to tell which country you're in. So we could see a lot of very close games in that, where most people get a score above like 24K. But Africa also has a lot of countries that are very hard to pinpoint in, like the likes of Ghana can be super hard. Kenya can be super hard if you're in a rural location. Senegal as well. Botswana, but we've had that in week 5, so hopefully at that point everyone will be able to do that. So I could see a lot of like high scoring draws there. Then we move to Romania, which is probably my second favorite of the countries or maps that we play this season after Japan. I just kind of like it. It's a map with it's a country with a good road number layout, and that's what I'm looking for in a country. Yeah, plenty of signs usually, as well as if you're not really far out there in sort of rural middle of nowhere. Then we go over to Singapore, which we've already seen twice in the finals with Raidman, picking it every time. Probably the map I'm least looking forward to, just because I hate cities, and Singapore is pretty much one big city. But yeah, probably going to be a lot dependent on what kind of locations we can get. I'm expecting a lot of perfect scores, or at least draws there, especially in like the lower divisions where people have like 5 minutes. I mean, 5 minutes, you've traveled half the country. So at that point, you probably should know where you are. And then we finish it off on a coastal world, which sucks. No, it's just like all of the countries that have coasts are just terrible.
And then just coastal roads can just, there's nothing there but the coast, right? So it can be really tricky to find any good clues, for sure.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of the more difficult GeoGuessr countries have just massive coasts. You've got a massive coast in Brazil, in the US, in Canada, in Indonesia, in Chile as well. Yeah, in
Australia.
Australia for sure. That's going to be fun because there's so many signs on those random rural Australian roads. So yeah. That's our 11 maps before, as always, we go to the AI-generated world map if we get to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. A very detailed run-through of those maps. Rado, anything to add here on your take on these maps?
Yeah, so I tried to keep it shorter. I'm very interested to see what effect it has that we do not have a US state this time. Will this be a problem for the American players? Or will they say, oh, I mean, it's grid system. We know that in America too, and just play well in Saskatchewan as well. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm interested to see. So besides that, I'm just going to give my personal opinion. I'm looking forward to play Japan, of course. I'm also looking forward to at least practice for Guatemala and Romania. This could be very interesting countries to discover. Generally, unlike Calamity, I do like the world maps, and they are often like must wins for me because I'm not so great at countries. My biggest nightmares here are Iceland and Singapore, because those two are both going to be very pinpoint heavy. And so I will most likely struggle on them. Yeah, it could be really interesting with Saskatchewan as well. I'm gonna wonder if that's fun or not. But yeah, it's a huge area, so generally I prefer those than like Rhode Island, for example. So yeah, it could be interesting as well. There's not that much landscape difference probably compared to California, which we had last season. So yeah, some good maps, some not so great maps. Yeah, as always, of course.
I think the great thing about Reddit League is that given these map pools, you're going to play a map you're probably not comfortable with. Like, even if you've played them all before, you're not going to like a couple of them. You might be really bad at them. So it really pushes you as a GeoGuessr player to try new maps, to learn new countries, as well as giving you a few that you do like so you don't hate every week of it. So I think for most of us, at least here, week one is definitely going to be one of our kind of our bone they give us with Japan here, this one. But one thing that is worth mentioning, especially for the world map, is that there has been a change to GeoGuessr over the kind of off season. The 5K mark is now what, 25 meters, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's actually like pretty much the opposite of what you said. Not for the world maps, because for that it won't really matter, because those are 170 meters anyway. But for the
country
for the
maps
country maps, yeah, it's been changed from 15 to 25 meters.
So, Rado, this is definitely your season. Someone who doesn't like pinpointing, you've got an extra 10 meters to work with.
Yeah,
So,
looks like the developers try to help me not get relegated.
yeah, you got some insider help there for sure. But yeah, so that definitely could change the number of aces we see in this season. We kind of use that as a gauge of how accurate players are, and that now that kind of fudges that number a little bit, because we can't really compare it too much with past seasons, given that they have almost an extra 40% extra distance to get that ace in. So that definitely could come into play for a lot of things. Very interesting. Well, thank you all for sitting here with us for the past hour or so and chatting about the upcoming season. We can't wait to start getting into this. And we hope that if you're not playing in this, that this season gets you interested in playing GeoGuessr at the competitive level, at least a little bit, enjoying the preseason next time. For that, yeah, any final closing thoughts, Calamity, about the upcoming season?
It's going to be a fun one, as always. And yeah, good luck to everyone.
Yeah, Rado.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. Practice well. Try to get into the country, even if you don't like it. Because oftentimes when you practice a country that you don't like, it gets better after the start, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah, and final closing word from us here. If you want your name, if you're a player and you want your name to be a certain way, please let us know in the comments below. We have to kind of, between the differences of the Reddit name and the GeoGuessr name, we don't always know what to call the players. So if you have a preference, please tell us. Apart from that, please, if you're a player, record your video. It's not that hard. Software is free. You don't have to do commentary or anything like that. Just hit that record button, let it run in the background as you play, and then hit it at the end when you finish. We'll worry about all the details in getting the cast together. We just want those videos from you so we can show off the players and of all levels and abilities for that. So we look forward to casting as many of those matchups as we can bring you. I think we have a couple goals. We would like to bring you some coverage in different languages. This season might be subtitled The French Invasion because of how many French players we have coming into the league. So we really want to bring maybe a couple French commentary videos for you all, just to showcase that side of the community. Well as a few other languages. We got 2 German speakers right here in Calamity and Rado, so maybe they can do a few videos for us in German. Yeah, so thank you all for watching, and we'll see you this season. Good luck.